Jody. Thank you, Jody.
Recording in progress.
All right. And we'll pass it to Chris.
And
So
we'll pass it to Chris. So,
and we have
Yes, this is
an
Chris
echo, Beth.
Kazan. I'm the principal at
Sorry about that, Chris. Go ahead.
sorry about that, Chris.
Oh, that's okay. No, I didn't know if I got recorded, but yeah, this is Chris Kazan, and I'm the principal at Gordon Bruno.
And Beth.
Beth Dorado, Director, Gordon Bruno Charter School.
Great.
Hello, it's Deb DeTore. I'm a board member.
And Sammy.
Sammy Marquez, business manager.
Thanks. Erica.
Erica Rivas, a minute recorder.
Thanks for joining us. And Sabah.
Hey, Sabai Jadi, board member.
And we have somebody joining on the phone. Are you able to let us know?
Yes, Cynthia Arndell, board member.
Thanks, Cynthia. Okay, we do have a quorum. So we're going to move to approving today's agenda. So thank you, Beth, for sharing that on the screen. Any comments or questions? The only quick edit could we make, Beth, is there in the community graduation, that's Friday, June 5th, correct?
Yes, thank you. And I have this open as a PDF, but I will note that we made that change in the open meeting, and I'll change it in the documents that get posted as well. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Beth.
Also, Beth, you've got the date of the meeting is April, I think it says 16th still.
Oh, yeah, and I just read that off too without thinking, so it's April 23rd.
So we will note in the notes and then in the official documentation that today is not April 16th, but April 23rd, and that our community graduation is not July 5th, but June 5th. Thank you for those updates.
Great. All right, do I have a motion to approve today's agenda?
This is Deb, and I move that we approve today's agenda.
Thank you, Deb. Do I have a second?
This is
Cynthia
Sabai.
Arndell. I
Second
second.
It was pretty simultaneous, but I'll take Cynthia as a second. And all in favor?
Aye.
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 We have approved today's agenda, and then we're going to take a look at our minutes from the March 2026 meeting.
And then at the last meeting, I had failed to send out the February minutes. And so we did not approve them, but tabled that motion. And for this meeting beforehand was able to send them both out. But we do need to approve both February and March minutes. Thank you, Martha.
Great. Yeah, so any comments, questions, corrections for the March meetings minutes? All right. Do I have a motion to approve March's meeting minutes?
I motion to approve March's meeting minutes.
Thank you, Jody. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Deb. And all in favor?
Aye.
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 Great. We have approved March's meeting minutes, and now let's go ahead and take a look at February's meeting minutes. Any comments, questions, corrections? All right. Do I have a motion to approve February meeting minutes?
I'll motion to approve February's meeting minutes.
Thank you, Sabah. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Deb. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. We have approved February's meeting minutes. And so it doesn't look like there are any additional community members here today. We always leave space for public comment. So we're going to move on to the past business discussion items. And so Beth, you did want to go ahead and give us a little bit of a Dash stakeholder update.
And I was so excited when Tina said we can put something on the past business discussion items. I know she's not present tonight, but last month, when we were talking in March, we had some discussion about how the school was hoping to approach the Priority School Bureau at PED in terms of our Dash reviewer. I made comments in relation to our 90-day and our annual strategic plan, which is in a platform called Dash, how it had lost some of our voice because we were subjected to some pretty intense influence by our Dash reviewer. It was not a concern unique to Gordon Burnell Charter School, but to a cohort of schools. And so we approached the Priority School Bureau as a unit and just shared some of our concerns. And as a group, we've all been reassigned to a new reviewer who I've not met yet, but other schools have and have relayed a real excitement for some new blood and some really good collaboration between them and that individual. Again, I've not met with her, but I will shortly as we're all kind of staggered out in a timeline. It is really interesting to see how that conversation, how sometimes some initiatives really develop. Those schools are all MRI schools struggling with graduation rates. And we have all decided to continue to support each other and are even joining the New Mexico Re-Engagement School Alliance to advocate for a change in how schools like ours and theirs are evaluated. And so the idea that we needed to reach out and engage differently with the stakeholder has kind of snowballed into a movement around advocacy and something that I'm really proud of. And so I think I mentioned New Mexico RESA in my director's report, and I'm happy to talk more about that. So we've got a new Dash reviewer, and we look forward to working with Regina Timms and meeting her and moving forward with her. So there's my past business.
That's great news. That's
It is.
great news.
Yeah.
That is really good work, Nat. That's fantastic.
Great. Thank you for that update, Beth. Yeah, and I agree with Cynthia. It's great to, come together with schools and have that support amongst each other and advocate for changes that would help benefit each of the schools. All right, we have quite a bit on our plate for the finance report. So we're going to welcome Sammy on to go over our monthly budget packet as well as the yearly budget.
Thank you, Martha. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, can you see it? Okay, so I am going to kind of go a little bit quicker through our monthly packet and then spend a little bit more time on the budget questions. Please just stop me and we can go over them. We do have a few bars. Oh, and there's one bar I forgot to do at the end of this one. But we did have two increased bars. One is for our community schools grant. We were just given additional funding towards the end of the year. And so we will be using that to pay for the majority of our community school coordinator because we did not have enough in our original award to pay for all of her salary. And so this will pay for the rest of it and her benefits. We have a small increase bar for operational. This is our final SEG bar. It's only $5,000, which is actually a really good thing. What this means is that we budgeted almost perfectly our operational fund last year. And so our projected budget was only $5,000 short of what our actual award was or our actual allocation was for the year. So that's awesome. We do have two transfer bars. One is for our city and county grants. That's the grants that we get from Bernalillo County, and then one for our adult ed grant. And again, transfer bars are just ensuring that we are not over budget at that function level. So we are staying in compliance with the statutes. The last bar that I forgot to mention at the Finance Committee meeting is our blanket bar approval. We do that every year. We get a blanket bar approval towards the end of the fiscal year. And what this does is it allows us to be able to submit bars after, April, May to make sure that we can, so we can ensure that we're not over budget at the function level. And if we get any last minute increases or decreases, we don't have to call any special meetings just to get bars approved. That's all the blanket bar approval does. In usually our July meeting, I will present all of the bars that I use the blanket bar approval for. So you guys will still see all the bars. It'll just be after. But that is the one that I forgot at the Finance Committee meeting because I was trying to go really fast to get to the budget. Any questions on any of the bars? Nope. Awesome. Of course, there's more details on the bars below. Looking at some of our graphs, we always like to look at our projected budget balances used by fund. I did make some notes on some of our funds that are over 100% again. This is our OST grant. It is showing over budget, and that's because of our additional compensation encumbrances. Once those jobs are closed out, when all the hours are recorded, then this will correct itself. This is our community school grant. It's over budget right now because we're waiting for the bar to be approved. That's on this packet. And so once that bar is approved, then we'll be able to allocate the rest of the funds and we won't be over budget anymore. You'll see our Title I is over budget by 1%. As we get closer to the end of the fiscal year with these special revenue funds that we pay all salaries out of, it is a balancing act because every time we run a payroll, the encumbrances are recalculated. And so it could push you over by a little bit or it can take you back under by a little bit. But we will ensure that we're not over budget by the end of the fiscal year. Looking at our yearly expenditure comparison by month, no significant changes here, just a slight decrease from last month, but no big changes. I always like to point out our function code change. This is our spending in the classroom, instruction, and instructional support. We have stayed very steady at about 65% for the year. This will change once we encumber the cost for the elevator and the outdoor learning space. It will go down basically because that's going to be under capital or maintenance and property. But this is really giving us a good picture of where we have been spending our money for the year. Looking at our liquidity, we're sitting at about a 7. That's about 7 months of cash on hand. If all of our revenue were to stop, we would have about 7 months worth of operational cash on hand to cover reoccurring expenses. We've stayed really flat for this whole year. That was our goal. So that looks great. Our budget analysis, this is just a more detailed description of the graphs above. So it shows our budget, our actuals that we've spent, our encumbrances, and what is left over. And you can see those few that are slightly over budget. Any questions on any of these? No? We'll go into our check listing report. I didn't have anything specific that I wanted to point out. Did anybody have any questions on any of the checks this month? No? Okay. I will go ahead and skip through our account summary reports. We have our balance sheet after that. And then we have our statement of revenue, expenditures, and change in fund balance. Looking at our bank reconciliation, we do zero out on our outstanding. We do have this check for the one student that we are still trying to get cleared. We are hopeful to get it cleared because we don't want to have to report $40 to unclaimed property. We would love for her to get her money. So we are still working on that. This one check as well, we'll probably have Diane or our new assistant Al check on this, see if it was lost, if it needs to be reissued because it was from January. But you can see the rest are all recent. And we do tie back to our March 31st bank statement. Any questions on the finance packet? No, perfect. We will go ahead and get started on the budget. Okay. So I'm going to go through everything. If you guys have questions, anything, please feel free to stop me and we can discuss as we go. So of course we have our table of contents, just going to go over what the packet looks like, where you can find things. Looking at our breakout list is listing our governing council members as well as the management team. You will notice that Chris Cazone is a part of the management team as he has been a principal this fiscal year, next fiscal year. I did list Diane as our assistant business manager, but I also listed Al. I don't know if we've let you guys know, but Diane will be leaving us. And so Al will be taking over. She has a few GC meetings. She has been training Al for the last 2 months. So hopefully you guys will get to meet him next month. All righty. So this is a budget analysis. This is just going to kind of hit the high points that we're going to go over in detail in the packet. And so we did collaborate on this budget and we were able to balance the budget by using new year revenue for next year, as well as some of our cash carry. All staff will receive a 1% pay increase, but we also do have mandated increases for health insurance. So the medical will go up by almost 10%, dental will go up by about 4%, and then vision will stay flat. So vision is not changing. This is the same increases that we saw last fiscal year as well, and we'll likely see again next fiscal year. They did try to break it up over a few years so that it wasn't one big jump in a year, but it is still pretty significant. Our unit value for our state equalization guarantee, which is our state funding, did go up about 3.49%. And you'll see throughout the budget that most of our increase in our funding is just due to the unit value increases. The school also now has their own at-risk index as well as English learner index. And so this is really helpful for the school. It wasn't, when it first came out, our at-risk index actually decreased. But for this new fiscal year, it captured the correct data. And so we will see an increase in our at-risk units. Along with our health insurance premiums going up, we also had a change in how the premiums are covered. Going forward, now responsible for paying 80% of all staff health premiums. It used to be a tiered system where the school paid for portions of different people's benefits based on their salary. They did do away with the tiered system, and now it's just flat across the board. The school will pay 80% for all staff members. So this did cause an increase in our expense of about $151,000. So here you can see some school-specific budget changes. Our SEG went up about 2.39%. We got an increase from our student count, about 58. This is primarily due to the unit value increase. We saw about a $92,000 decrease in our ancillary. And then our risk insurance, so the insurance for the school, we did see about a 29% increase in our insurance as well. These are statutory requirements. So again, SEG, that unit value went up about 3.49%, a 1% average raise for all employees, and then that 80-20 split.
Yeah, and
Any
Beth
questions?
noted during the finance committee that to keep in mind that because more of the health insurance costs are being covered by the school, that's going to feel like more of a raise for staff members than just the 1%.
Yeah.
And so kind of, even though it doesn't seem like the 1% is a lot, it's going to feel like more because more of those health insurance costs will be covered.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Any questions on this? No? This page, this is just budget changes, statutory requirements. None of this actually changed this year. It's all the same as last year. And so we have, our basic minimums for teachers, EAs, the minimum hourly rate. These are the changes in medical, dental, instructional hours, things like that. And then our principal minimums down here as well. But none of that changed this year, but we do like to include that information. Looking at the school's budget summary, so this is the overall budget. And so we're looking at an overall budget of about 8.3 million, which includes new revenue of about 5.7 million and projected cash carryover of about 2.5 million. So like I said before, our main increase in our SEG is due to the unit value increase. And then we have a few line items that increased as well that we'll get into a little bit later. At the time that we created the budget, most of our special revenue funds were based off of estimates from APS. which were current year estimates. But since then, we have gotten some new estimates. So things are constantly changing as we budget. But we're just going off of the most accurate information that we have available at the time. Our capital outlay funds are going to be based off of what the state gives, Bernalillo County, Sandoval County, things. But you can see that our general fund here makes up the majority of our budget at about 62%. We have special revenue makes up about 15%, and then our capital makes up the rest at about 23% for that total $8.3 million budget. Any questions? All righty. Looking at our
Well,
revenue.
actually, I'm sorry. I have a quick question. This is just me, my ignorance and not being able to look at these budgets well, but I noticed that there is going to be an increase in instructional assistants. When I was looking at the budgets, am I incorrect that there was?
Remember where?
Oh, no, of course not. I was thinking that it was probably around 8,000. Okay, let's just move on.
Right. And if we find it, we can come back to it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Never mind.
Awesome. So we're going to look at our revenue. So overall, we're projecting about a 10% increase in revenue when we look at all the funds. Like I said, we will see about a $79,000 increase in our SG. We'll get into that detail on the next few slides. Our federal funds, we're going to see a little bit of a decrease. And then our main increase that we're seeing is from our capital funds. And I say increase slightly because basically it's coming from our capital outlay funding, and that is for the elevator. And so the elevator and the outdoor learning space, it all just depends on when we're able to actually incur that expense and then get reimbursed for it. Because our LPA amendment is kind of stuck right now at PED. We don't know if it will get before the end of the fiscal year. And so we might pay for it at the end of this fiscal year. We might pay for it at the beginning of next fiscal year. And so that's kind of where that you can see here that revenue is projected in next year. It might be in this year. It just depends on the timing, basically. You'll see here we are not budgeting for our Pathways grant. This is one that we are not sure if we're going to get. We thought we weren't going to get it this year. We ended up getting some this year, and then halfway through the year, they gave us more. And so it's something that we don't like to project in our budget, just in case we don't actually receive it. We also do not budget for our lease assistance. They don't allow us to budget for it at the beginning of the year. They'll give us our award, in the late fall, early winter, and then we'll do an initial budget bar to account for that revenue. Any questions here? No? Awesome. So this is our program cost review. This is that more detailed breakout of our operational funding itself, where we're getting our numbers from, where we're getting our units from. And so you can see here, actually, in our grades, just our general basic membership, we stayed the exact same as our budget this year. And so we were at 188, and that is our average 80/120th membership. And so we stayed exactly the same here, but we still saw an increase because of the unit value increase, which is great. You'll see we had other increases in our TCI, our teacher content index, how much funding we get for our teachers, our Class C, and then we had an increase in our at-risk as well as our English learners. We saw decreases in our Class D, our gifted/twice exceptional, our AB program, and then a slight decrease in our K-12 plus units. But overall, we are still seeing an increase of about 2.39%. Any questions on our SEG funding? No? Awesome. Now looking at our expenditures, so we were able to balance our budget by utilizing $140,000 of our cash carryover. And the reason why we did this is because looking at the needs of the school, Beth and I discussed how beneficial an instructional coach would be. And so we did add a new position of an instructional coach to this budget, and the cost for well-qualified instructional coach are usually a higher level staff member is approximately $120,000 to $140,000 for that position, with the salaries and benefits included. And so that's primarily why we are going to be using some cash carryover this next year. But Beth and I also discussed the plan to grow a little bit. You know, if we can grow a handful of students, then that growth would cover the cost of the staff member completely. And so our plan for the future is to grow a little bit within the next few years, but we do have enough cash carryover to cover this position until we can get to that point. Our cash carryover, we do have about 2.5 million.
Can I ask a quick question?
Of course.
Can Deb tell us about, I know because I was a principal, but what an instructional coach is going to do for our school?
Absolutely. I'm hopeful. I'm super excited actually, because we've already interviewed and have a top candidate who I hope we're able to bring on. But an instructional coach is a non-evaluative observer and feedback cycle position. This particular position was posted and interviewed, and the job description will include not only just supporting staff in their instruction, their implementation of instruction, but also really looking at the curriculum that we have. We are looking to adopt a curriculum in some core areas. We haven't revisited our social studies curriculum in a very long time. And even some of the more recent work we did with math and ELA requires support in implementation. And so the instructional coach will be able to take ownership of and lead initiatives to adopt and improve high quality instructional materials, but also will be a leader in really supporting the implementation of that. And so I mentioned at the beginning of this non-evaluative because this person will not be completing evaluations in their walkthroughs, but we'll really be looking at supporting staff members in terms of how are they using the curriculum, how are they differentiating for the large varied skill level and interest level and attendance structures of our students. And so it really becomes a key student-facing position in that this individual will be in and out of classrooms all of the time, working with staff and students, but really focused on how to improve the consistency of our instruction and the implementation of our curriculum and our assessment models. And so I'm super excited because these are all tasks that we have been trying to share across the leadership team, and it's difficult when it takes a back burner to finance, to operations, to facilities. And this really allows a person to take ownership and to be not only a support to our instructional staff, but also a canary in the mine for leadership in terms of what gaps are we experiencing that current leadership doesn't have the capacity to address. So I'm super excited because I think this position will really strengthen outcomes for students and the services that we provide.
I think it sounds great, and I think it's aligned with the restructuring process that we're trying to achieve. I mean, I think it sounds fantastic. I think that's where I got the number of the increase in when I said instructional assistants. That might have been where I saw that when I was looking through everything.
Absolutely, Cynthia, and I couldn't say it better. It is absolutely aligned with the restructurings choices that we're making and the support that we want.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Beth. So continuing, just talking about our cash carryover, we have about 2.5 million in cash carryover. That does include operational, food service, HB 33, both SB 9 and SB 9 state match, and then just other carryover as well. Majority are YAS prize that we received a few years back that we do have a little bit of cash still from that. But that's what our cash carryover is made up of basically. And so it's of course a majority operational. We're going to look at our expenditures by function code now. And this first portion is just operational, so not all of our other funds. But here you can see that instruction and classroom support, which is like student support, is going to make up about 58% of our budget and operational, which right now, in our monthly packets, you can see that our spending in the classroom has been on average around 54%. So we're projecting about the same, a little bit more. This is just out of operational. And then you can see the rest is going to be admin, central services, building and plant, and then a small percent out of other. And then if we keep going, this is looking at our expenditure by function again, but now it's all funds. And so this graph, we can see a comparison. And all of these charts are excluding our cash. And so this is giving us a better picture than when we have to budget our cash in. Sometimes it'll skew our numbers because we do have to budget our cash just in certain line items. And so you can see there's an increase in salary and benefits because of the instructional coach position. There's a slight decrease in classroom support because our pathways grant that we're not budgeting for, we usually pull most of that into that classroom support there. There's an increase in building and plan. Again, this one, we would have seen an increase either this year or next year. It just all depends on timing when we get our LPA amendment approved and when we actually get the elevator and the space built and paid. And so it might be this year, it might be next year. Now we're going to look at our expenditures by object code. So this is more of like by category, not necessarily where it's being spent, but by category of where it's being spent. This first top graph is going to be operational. We are going to be spending about 76% on compensation and benefits. That's typical. That's always the largest portion of our expenses. And then you'll see about 18% in contract services and about 6% in supplies. The graph below is going to show all funds, not just operational. And again, you're going to see that slight increase in compensation and benefits because of the position change. You're going to see an increase in contract services just based on where we're spending our money. The building is going to be a big part of that. And then there's just minimal changes from there in supplies and property. Any questions on these? No? Awesome. We're going to look at our personnel costs now. And so overall, we had a very minimal change in our personnel. We were going to see a slight decrease, about a 0.25 FTE decrease, but that is because we removed a few positions and then we added a position. And so they kind of almost balanced each other out, but we're still seeing just a slight decrease. You can see that we have quite a few teachers. These teachers do include our adult ed teachers as well, not just our regular ed teachers, but it does include both. We have our clerical support staff here. And then here, I wanted to point out in administration, it does seem higher than normal, the 4.1. Beth and I did discuss this as well. This is including Beth, of course, Kazone, our principal, Chris Pauls, our assistant principal, and then we did actually add a 0.5 FTE for a campus administrator for next year because Kazone is going to be at North Fourth more frequently. We still administrator at MDC. And so Leilani, one of our social workers, is actually going to be a split FTE now, and she's going to take on some of those administrative duties so that Kazone can be more present at North Fourth as well. And then we also added an administrative assistant this year to help Beth and the admin staff, but this administrative assistant is also going to be a student support position. And so we will kind of see that position more up here in the student support section more than this admin. But that's why it looks high, because that position is being included here as of right now. Any questions on that? Awesome. Down here, you can see our additional compensation. So this is additional services, additional work that staff does on top of their regular positions. And so you will see the total cost here. These are all stipends, things like that that we've had in years past. And so nothing has changed here. Next, these are all of our non-personnel costs. So everything else that we pay for throughout the year. You'll see we have other professional technical services. That includes myself for text education, our IT services, and then just any other contract services there. You can see other contract services we have. This is our website maintenance, cleaning services, nurse. JMP Academy helps with student reporting, our working classroom food service, and then this other category is just budgeting for any other contract services that we might have throughout the year. And this is coming from all funds, not just operational. We have our ancillary services that we always budget for here, auditing, legal, advertising, our county tax collection, everything. Again, these are all the same thing that we've had in years past. Nothing has changed. On the next page, we have training, travel, professional development, materials, instructional materials, and general supplies and materials. I've listed some of our softwares that are typical that we have every year. And then looking at our capital and our reserve, I always like to point out our operational reserve. So this is at about 1.6 million. This includes the 750,000 that you guys as the governing council have set aside as a cash reserve. And so that's where that number is being budgeted. Then we have a reserve for our SB9 and our HB 33 fund as well. Any questions on our other expenses? No? Awesome. Finally, looking at our operational fund balance, this is what we like to call our cash, right? Our fund balance. This is going to give an analysis over the last few fiscal years here. And I always like to highlight these recent ones here. And so this is where we ended FY25 as our audited cash. We are projecting to end this fiscal year with about 1.7 million. And you'll see we did have a decrease from 24 to 25 because of that fear of the cash sweep that we had. There's a lot of talk about a cash sweep. So we spent some of our money on things that we needed and on our building. So that's where that slight decrease is coming from. But then we were able to rebuild projected to end this fiscal year. And then we are projecting to end next fiscal year a little bit lower. But again, that's because we are opening that new position. And so that's where you see that decrease coming in. Any questions on here? Awesome. That's our last page of the bulk of the budget. You'll see in our appendix below. Oh my goodness. I don't know why it's so zoomed out. Sorry. This is our 910B5. So this is the calculator that we use from PED to calculate our state equalization guarantee. So that SEG fund, and you'll see down at the bottom here, that total number. You can look if you wanted to look, you can see all of our, basically where we get our units from. Here's the English learner, the K-12 plus. Up here, we have at risk. If we had growth units, they would be here. You can see our regular membership up at the top, our basic membership, and then our special education. So it just breaks everything out to where we get that total SEG estimate here. Below that, we do have our salary schedule. And so this does include our PED licensed teachers as well as our HED teachers, our assistant principals, and our EAs. This did not change from last year, just so everyone knows we did not change it this year. So it's the same as you saw last year. Then at the bottom, we have our calendar, which does include a teacher contract of $205 and an admin contract of $215.
One of the things, Sammy, first of all, thank you so very much. This is an incredible amount of work every single year. And one of the things that's really helped me as my competency and confidence in the finance world increases, which really helped me kind of understand how this all works is, Sammy puts a tremendous amount of work into this initial budget. And then we spend the whole year adjusting it, right? Every single month there's bars, there's increases, there's decreases, there's transfer bars. And so this is was as close to an accurate snapshot as humanly possible. 2 weeks ago when Sammy, or last week when Sammy, was it just the beginning of this week? Last weekend.
Yeah. Finished it this last weekend.
And you finalized it because you all gave her a little extra time to get that done. And the reality is, since that time, we already know significant changes. We budgeted $150,000 for our MRI CSI fund. And this week we got a projected award letter from the Secretary of Education at $180,000. That's a $30,000 increase. That's significant. And since that time, we've already heard from Bernalillo County, while they did extend our behavioral health grant for another year and we signed all the documents, they don't have the budget to keep it at the 52,000. And so we're waiting to hear it's probably going to be closer to 26, not in writing, but we got that verbally. And so just kind of acknowledging that this is a snapshot, right? It was exactly all of the numbers that Sammy had at her fingertips several days ago. And in those days, those numbers are already fluctuating. So we take these numbers, we enter them, we submit them to you, we enter them into PED, given that you're approved. And then as early as next month, we're going to be adjusting them, right? We're going to be going like, oh, actually, it looks more like this. And so that perspective and that concept really helped me understand that school finance is fluid. And that, one of the things that I pride myself on is going after every dollar that I think we might be eligible for within the window that I see. And so, just wanting to say that while we have a big annual budget on the board's agenda every year, and we talk about how the board is a stakeholder in giving us feedback about how it's spent. I just want to extend the opportunity for that feedback and that collaboration to continue throughout the year, because the budget is fluid. It will go up, it will go down, and at every meeting when Sammy presents, I welcome conversations about how is that money being used or what are we thinking about. And I often just present it as a decision, but I wanted to remind the board that it can be a conversation and it should be a conversation. And I welcome your questions and your feedback today, but also throughout the year as we continue to adjust the budget based on actual awards and then changes to those awards. You have a bar on today's finance packet for additional $18,000 of community school. And one of the reasons why I think we got it is because we are receptive to that fluidity. And when we get special revenue funds, we work really hard to spend them. And I think that reputation is starting to have its mark, because not all community schools got an increase, but we did. And I think that is just a testament to how I approach the budget just it being a very fluid and flexible way to constantly evaluate what we're spending and trying to increase revenue so that we can continue to improve services. And so just wanted to acknowledge those things before you guys have any questions or open it up for any discussion.
Yeah, thank you both so much, Sammy and Beth. I think it's a testament to the hard work of both of you and the K-12 team to see that the difference from the estimated budget last year to the actual was only $5,000. So, even though it is very
that's amazing.
difficult to estimate what's going to happen, it just shows that you guys have your numbers on point in terms of budgeting them out to the last dollar, using those funds that are given when they come in. So I really appreciate all the work that you've done on this. And it shows that the school is being well stewarded into the future. I'm curious, I guess this is sort of tangential, but last year one of the new positions that was introduced was the reading interventionist. And so maybe, aside from this, that it might be kind of nice to have some sort of follow-up of how you felt like that was a positive addition to the school, in the same way that, okay, this year we're adding an instructional coach. So maybe then we could have a follow-up, halfway through the year, at the end of the year, because I think that helps us move forward with, future budget discussions too, to see okay, we put in this extra money for these positions, and this is, the outcome that we saw from it. So that's just more of a future request when we're adding on new positions that you think will be helpful.
I do have one more thing really quick. I'm going to be sending everyone that's here a form that we need filled out for your signature. It is just the board members that were present when the budget gets approved. send it right now, so please be on the lookout for it because I do have to upload it to APS.
Great.
Thank you.
All right. Any discussion from board members about this year's budget? Oh, and Deb, you just muted yourself.
I think that our budget reflects our vision. I think it reflects, I appreciate all that you all do to make it, because I think that's what a budget should do. It should show who we are, what we value, and I think that's real obvious in our budget, and I appreciate that.
Any other questions or comments, concerns?
I would just agree with you on just kind of a midway report on the value of adding the instructional coach, which again I'm very supportive of that.
Okay, great. So it seems like everyone is in agreement that the budget looks great and we don't have any other further questions or comments. I'm going to pull up my language. So do we have a motion to conditionally approve the budget pending final approval by the PED with possible budget changes?
I'll motion to conditionally approve the budget.
Thank you, Sabah. Do I have a second?
I'll
I'll
second
second that.
We're all set.
I heard Deb a little bit before, and then all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right. We have conditionally approved the budget pending final approval by the PED with possible budget changes. All right. Thank you, everyone. And we also then will look at the approval of accounts and payroll vouchers. Do I have a motion to approve accounts and payroll vouchers?
I'll motion to approve accounts and payroll vouchers.
Thank you, Saw. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you.
Motion to approve.
Yeah,
Mhm.
thank you. And do I have all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and
Aye.
stand. So we have approved the accounts and payroll vouchers. And next, we're going to go ahead and look at the budget adjustment requests or bars. Do I have a motion to approve the bars?
I motion to approve.
Great. Thank you, Jody. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Sawal. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. We have approved the bars. And so those are all of our finance related ones. Should we go ahead and do calendar as well while finance team is here, or is it not necessarily that we have to link those?
The calendar does require separate board approval and is part of the budget packet because the number of days does get reflected in our K-12 plus funding. And so we can certainly talk about that a little bit more if anyone has interest. I don't know that I linked it outside of the budget packet. And so it was one of the appendices in the packet that Sammy just shared with us. So if there are questions about the calendar specifically that you guys have before there's a motion, I'm happy to answer them.
Sure, let's take a quick look at that. And I know that when we have new board members, I always like to kind of give some past perspective. In the past, the calendar has always been something tricky to get agreement on. And so one of the really smart things that Beth did was open up a committee to working on the calendar and getting lots of staff input. So the last few years, she's helped to kind of offload some of that responsibility and make sure everyone was happy with the calendar. Do you want to give us a little bit of background, Beth, in terms of some of the
Absolutely.
discussions that went on in the committee and how they settled on this particular calendar?
Absolutely. So yeah, the very first year I worked on a calendar with our business manager. And since then, I have, like Martha indicated, I have an open invitation to all staff to join the calendar committee, and I participate but do not vote in that space. I'm not a voting member of the calendar committee because I work like every day of the week all year long. I'm just teasing. And so it doesn't matter to me if it's a day off or not, right? My job is really focused on deadlines and just continuous management of what's happening here at the school. I'm not remembering exactly how many people joined the calendar committee this year. I want to say it was around 7 or 8. It was a fairly healthy number. Unlike in prior years, the state removed some of the language in the budget bill, which required schools to maintain the same amount of instructional hours as the day before. There's also been language in the budget bill passed by the legislature requiring schools to maintain either a 4-day or 5-day week as they have in previous years. And that language is no longer present. And so that meant that the calendar committee could really engage in discussions. Did we want to reduce our 5-day week back to a 4-day week? As an organization, we have a history. There was a long period where we were a 4-day-a-week school as opposed to a 5-day-a-week school. And so there was lots of discussion about possibly going back to a 4-day-a-week school. That really cuts into some of the breaks and things. And so the staff decided on the calendar committee that they did not want to do that. They had lots of discussions about where not just the days that you see in front of us, but they also had some discussions about when a lot of our collaborative meetings will occur. This year, we did go from a 4-day week to a 5-day week for students. So we have 5 instructional days a week for students, but many staff members don't report to their campuses on Friday morning. We rely on our contractors coming in and offering some enrichment and academic supports, and staff join all of our collaborative meetings remotely Friday mornings. And that was a structure that was up for debate as well. Do we want to maybe redistribute those? Right now, we do our campus meetings, we do PLCs, which stand for Professional Learning Communities. We do our MLSS, our multi-level systems of support, where we really discuss students. We do all of those things back to back remotely on Friday mornings while students are engaged with contracted services. There was a long discussion about whether we wanted to redistribute those to like a Monday, Thursday afternoon after the day type situation. But again, staff, that committee, this committee even posed to the larger staff some survey questions to make sure that they were acting on behalf of what the larger staff wanted. And there was also some communication with students around, what would work best. And at the end of the day, staff decided to maintain pretty much the schedule that we have this year. So we are a 5-day instructional week, but on Fridays, we do engage in most of our collaborative work online while students engage with contractors. There was a concerted effort to move a lot of our days off to Mondays instead of Fridays to not interrupt that professional development and collaboration time, but to hold that, protect that some. And so you'll see, like many of our 3-day weekends include a Monday off as opposed to a Friday off. And they go back and forth. Do we have the whole week off for Thanksgiving or a longer break in May, what they came up with for the most of the year means that we go 3, 4, the most 5 weeks before we have a small break in a 3-day weekend or in a spring or fall break. And our longest stretch being at the end of the year, and really highlighting the need at that time to focus on finishing students out for graduation. And so, the staff chose a longer break in November around Thanksgiving as opposed to a longer break in April or May, because they realize that really becomes crunch time to graduate students and their who are working on their individualized learning plans. So again, neither Chris Cazone, who also helped facilitate those meetings, nor I voted on the calendar, but the remaining calendar committee staff did, and here you are.
Thank you.
Great. Any comments, questions for the calendar? All right. So do I have a motion to approve the school year 27 calendar?
I move to approve the school year 26-27 calendar.
Thank you, Deb. Do I have a second?
I second the motion to approve.
Thank you, Cindy. And all in favor?
Aye.
Great. We have approved school year 27 calendar. Big shout out to the committee for getting that together, because like Beth going through all those details, it is a lot to consider and plan out.
Yeah.
All right. So before we move on, it seems like we're on a roll with all of our action items, but we do need to go back a little bit. We're going to thank Sammy so much for joining us today and the tremendous amount of work she put into the year's budget, as well as like the monthly finance report. So thank you, Sammy. And we look forward to seeing you next month as well.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Sammy. Yeah, thank you.
Nice month.
Right, bye. All right, so we're gonna go back on the agenda then to our director's report, which will then get us to our other action items.
And I want to acknowledge that because of the time and the lots of things on the agenda and so many things to discuss, I'm not necessarily going to go and piece by piece through the whole report. But if I don't cover something that you have questions about, please bring them up. It's one of the reasons why I like to send out these documents and ahead of time so that you have a chance to review them. Also, it's like I did this one several weeks ago already. So lots of things have happened since then. But I will try to go through and kind of highlight a few things. I typically try to leave many of these sections kind of static and then update them monthly. We typically have a staff update section. And so I've mentioned here, we are losing some staff to retirement, and then bringing in some staff this school year to facilitate some training before other staff members who were short-term employees exit. And also just some really great news. We held a marathon event of interviews earlier this week, and have made conditional offers to an instructional coach, to a new ELA teacher, and a new science teacher. Our ELA teacher currently at Northfork this year is not leaving us, but transitioning into the electives position, which was opened up by a retirement of one of our staff members this year. And our science teacher at the Northfork campus is retiring at the end of this year, but she is going to come back and work for us part-time and support some of our asynchronous students. A part of our restructuring, again, to really make sure that we're assigning students who are here regularly to teachers who are here regularly, and offering kind of a a different level of support to students who are not here as regularly. And so our science teacher will remain with us part-time after she steps away for retirement. And so we're hopeful that the conditional offers that we made all come together and end up in new staff members signing contracts. But it is early. We're still in checking references, doing background checks, and inviting those 3 potential new staff members to spend some time on campus and make sure that it's a good fit for them, because we are a very non-traditional model. And so you don't really understand what you're getting into until you've had a chance to observe it. So we're hopeful that we don't have to interview anymore, but there is always the possibility that it's not the best fit. And so that's why those are still conditional offers. But things are moving right along. I did want to pause and talk a little bit about New Mexico Reza, because I think it is super exciting. There are a cohort of schools who feel a little like we are being scapegoated for poor performance, when the reality is the metrics being used don't really measure our mission, our vision, or the work that we're doing. And so, again, as I mentioned at the beginning of this meeting when discussing past business, it started locally with us asking for to engage differently with our DASH reviewers, and it has resulted in the founding of an organization called New Mexico Reza that I'm proud to be a part of. And this group of schools hopes not to be on the defensive with the public education, but really advocating for a different view of what we're trying to do. A large number of our student successes are not captured in the current accountability model, and our position that the state's current accountability model paints a very narrow picture of what a successful student looks like. So schools who are not graduating students in 4 years, who are proficient on the SATs, are being identified as poor performers. And we want to advocate for the idea that many successes happen after those 4 years, and many successful people are not proficient on the SATs, and that is okay. There is some concern that the current picture of a successful student is discriminatory to a lot of populations who don't look like students who are proficient on the SATs and graduate in 4 years. And so we're advocating together to ask for the public education department to recognize that we are successful and we're outstanding in meeting our missions, even if we're not graduating people in 4 years who are proficient on the SATs. So super excited to be a part of this group. We've all decided that right now we need to put our heads down and get through the next month or two as we are all in restructure and redesign. And one thing that we are doing together as a group, in the restructure and redesign application for schools who are in need of most rigorous intervention, there is a question that says, why are we choosing restructure and redesign instead of the other options that were presented to us, which include close and restart under new leadership with new staff, or just close? And all of us are responding to that question in the application with a unified response. So we are all submitting the exact same answer that we are drafting together. And that is, we are not closing because we are an important piece of the public school portfolio. And that if we closed instead of restructured or redesigned, then we would be discriminating against students who look like the students identified in Yazzie Martinez, because we should be celebrated for what we're adding to the portfolio. And if we close, then that's an injustice. So I can share with you that draft as it's finished, but we all plan to submit our applications with the exact same answer to Section 2, Question 3B. Why are you not closing? Because we need to be open, because without us, we are limiting access of public education to a particular subset of students. So beyond that collaborative answer, we are not going to engage a whole lot until we can get through this incredibly difficult time of year. And then we hope to really, create a website and maybe do a press release and see if schools across the state want to join us. Right now, it's just Albuquerque Metro schools. But the capacity for all of the 6 school leaders in New Mexico Reza is a little bit on hold until we can get our applications for renewal submitted and all of those types of things. But this is exciting and really important advocacy work, and I'm excited to be a part of it. I shared some links about our restructuring. There's not a whole lot of drafting there yet because it's budget season and I'm working to re-up our community school funds and our out of school time funds, and those applications are time intensive and take a lot of effort. But as soon as I've got some of the next couple of things in line, we'll move right into those applications, and we've already been discussing them some. Talked a little bit, there is a candidate to replace Dr. Escobedo, and excited about that. Do want to pause just for a minute because these are actually action items. Because they are purchases over $60,000. If you remember, our current policies and procedures in alignment with procurement code in New Mexico indicate that anything under $20,000 is my discretion. Anything between $20,000 and $60,000 requires that I do some research and look at competitive bids and write statements about why I chose to spend money, that amount of money in particular places. And anything over $60,000 requires the board to have eyes on it and to actually approve it. And so there are 2 action items on today's agenda for purchases or contracts over the amount of $60,000. One is to our IT1 platform. This is not a new relationship. We have engaged in business for several years now with IT1, otherwise known as Nucleus. This is an important platform which helps our students. It's technology which allows them to single sign on into their devices and access all of our online platforms. That's helpful in the community. It's necessary in the facility because not only do they allow it ease of signing on, they also ensure the security required for access to technology in a correctional setting. So they work with jails and prisons across the United States, providing safe and secure access to online content without any fear that students can access things that they're not supposed to be accessing. So for several years before we found them, it mainly fell on Chris Cazone's responsibility to be tracking what students were doing, to investigate when things might be going wrong, to work closely with our IT providers to ensure that all the firewalls and things were up. This is a leap in terms of technology because it really does mean that not only just students not know, but staff don't know student logins because it's all randomized by the program. It means that students can't give their logins to individuals outside of the facility who can then log in and use that as a covert way to communicate. It really just provides peace of mind in the incarcerated setting. And then it really adds a tremendous amount of convenience across the board. For the last several years has been a contract under $60,000, but part of our restructuring, remember, and plan is to increase services for adult education inside the facility, which means we're opening up a second school pod, which means we will have additional inmates accessing our online platform, and we need that security. So by increasing the licenses, it's tipped us over the 60,000 mark, and actually came in at 70,000. Because that is an action item, I'll pause here and ask if there's any questions specific to that.
Beth, for the free content that's included in that in this the is it called the scope of work document you gave statement of it says you can select from the following. Does that mean those are just all included and students select from those every time they can log in, or is that something you have to decide which of those you're going to take? I was just curious.
Yeah, it's a great question, Sabah. As an organization, we can turn that on or off, and so we opt into it. Most of it we have turned on and Chris is on the line, so he manages that a lot more closely. Feel free, Chris, to jump in if you want. I know that he can also can limit how much time students can spend on it, and he actually had to limit how much time they can spend in the encyclopedia, which you would think would be silly, but because we had people who would just spend hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours looking at the encyclopedia, and we're not looking at any of the content that was related to their studies. And so I think that there's something a little fancy he did that said once they do a certain amount of this, then they are able to do a certain amount of that. I think we have turned off some of the more of the entertainment. I think there's one on there that's about that's more entertainment. The jail itself has tablets in the pods that are essentially entertainment tablets, and we had to agree that we're not competing with that. These are educational tablets. So I think that there are some things, but most of that is turned on. I know the Good Jobs is turned on. Khan Academy is the calculator. Chris, do you have anything to add to that? Chris may have stepped away. We just have his doggy. But I hope that.
No, sorry, I was fumbling for my audio. No, I don't have anything to add. You said it right. It was a matter of trying to figure out what students were on, and a lot of it was kind of idle time looking at encyclopedia videos. And once we did that, and as you said, we didn't want to compete with the jail. So we got it down. What they're doing pretty much is, I would say 90% educational, which is where we want it.
Beth, like Sabah, I was pretty impressed with all the price compared to all that we're getting for our money. As they're talking about taking books out of the prisons, we have access to a library, even though they're older books. There's things for people to read. I just think that I think it's a good deal for our money, especially with the security.
And that's the bulk of it, right? Is the NDC licenses are more than double the price of the community license, and that is the security. And it is really a relief not to have to worry that students are accessing things. There's just no possible way for it to do. I mean, the security it's so. I mean, just so an example, so like it's not only like the logins are randomized, but it's also those logins are tied to the access points in their pods. So if I'm a student and I live in D5, but I send a kite, which is a note that inmates pass to my co-defendant in F6 and say, hey, log in as me, and they can't even within the facility, someone in another pod can't even log in to with a student's name that isn't associated with that access point in that room. So the level of security it really helps us relax some and know that they can access our educational content and not get in any trouble. We don't want to be on the news for facilitating communication that ended in something horrible. And this really gives peace of mind that that's not going to happen. They've a long-standing business who's operating in lots of correctional facilities across the nation. So. Awesome. The other action item, and I can update this a little bit with some interesting information that it fell into place in such a beautiful way. I'm so impressed the way that it did. So when Sammy came to me and said, you have $1.8 million in cash carryover. That's a lot. I was like, oh, can I spend some of it down? And she's like, yeah. She's like, what do you need? I'm like, well, we need some new Chromebooks. We need some new technology. And so you're seeing $1.6 million in cash carryover because I was like, I need to spend a couple $100,000. We're still getting quotes for new Chromebooks and new technology, but one of the things that was on my wish list was another school operated activity vehicle. We currently own an Explorer, and we use that to help students get to their student internships through work-based learning. We help them to get to resources. We help, whenever our pathway navigators are taking students out to get glasses or to get to a doctor's appointment, we can offer transportation during the school day. And because work-based learning is really helping students get to all of these great internship experiences that our coordinator has set up, we're often running into the car is busy. The vehicle is busy. And so I said, can we get another vehicle? And Sammy said, if that's how you want to spend your cash carryover, go for it. So we started the process of obtaining another vehicle. Simultaneously, this week, last week, as Sammy and I were looking, we meet weekly to just talk about all things finances, but we meet monthly to specifically review our special fund balances to make sure that things are not only encumbered, but that encumbrances are real and are actually being drawn down the way that we expect them to. And so we were looking, it's crunch time for our funds that expire at the end of the fiscal year. If we're going to spend money down, we've got to do bars and we've got to make plans and spend it down. And so we were looking at our Innovation Zone grant, which we had budgeted a significant amount to work-based learning, to student internship costs, to paying students, to placing them in different places. We applied for that funding early last fall. We weren't awarded the funding until October, and we didn't get budgetary authority over it until December. And so we were not able to start setting up a work-based learning program until the second semester. And we've experienced some challenges, things that I think are growing pains that we're certainly learning from. And we will improve. If we get this funding next year, we will be able to improve in the next fiscal year. But the reality is we budgeted almost $100,000 to student stipends to get them in paid internships and paid work-based learning opportunities. And the reality is we're not going to be able to expend that amount of money. And so I went to I looked at the original application. I looked at all the allowable expenses. I looked at some things that we were planning to do next fall. I went to PED and I said, hey, we have to move some money around. Can I spend it on some high quality CTE and some data and flexible scheduling, all things that were in our original application? And they said no, because it was a competitive grant and we had asked for nearly $100,000 in work-based learning, not in high quality CTE. No, so we're spending the other $100,000 in those spaces, but we couldn't move the budget because it was awarded based on the large percentage that we were going to put into work-based learning. We wouldn't be able to move that into other areas of allowable expenses that were initially presented. That if I was going to get a budget update form approved, then I needed to keep the money in work-based learning. And I said, okay, well, help me understand how to spend a bunch of money in work-based learning, because I'm not going to spend it on student internships. There's just no way, right? We're not going to suddenly enroll a bunch of more students or increase their hours. We didn't get the whole first semester to spend it. So we're struggling now. And she's rattling off and she said, well, transportation. I said, huh? We're about ready to buy a new vehicle. Will that work? And so just yesterday, PED approved. So I'm not going to buy this vehicle out of cash carryover, but I am going to buy this vehicle, with your permission, out of our Innovation Zone grant. And so it was approved as a removal of barriers to getting students to paid internships to use our Innovation Zone money for this vehicle. So it won't actually pull down cash carryover as it was. So this is another example of how Sammy's budget is already outdated, right? Because she coded this vehicle to spending down some of our cash carryover. And now I'm asking her to change that, but we will be able to spend down cash carryover rolls over, right? So I can spend that next year. Innovation Zone granting grant money will expire at the end of the fiscal year. So very long story to say that the actual cost of this vehicle, there is a PO in place waiting your approval, is $64,000, and it won't come out of our cash carryover. It has been approved to the majority of it. I think $58,000 will come out of Innovation Zone, which will help us expend that money and not leave it on the table for the state to pull back and to say we don't spend the money that is granted to us. So I'm excited because that fell into place, all of it over the last week, and really helps us ensure that we will pay down those expendable funds, and then allows us to think about how else can we spend cash carryover in ways that are meaningful to the student population. So since that is also an action item, I'll pause there and ask if there's any questions.
Well, that sounds great. Thank you for that background information, Beth. Should we go ahead and work on those two action items? I'm worried about a quorum in case anybody needs to like step off. So let's go ahead and get those done. So any other comments or things for either the ITI or IT1 platform or the vehicle? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the IT1 platform contract?
I'll move to approve the IT1 contract.
Thank you, Deb. Do I have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Cindy.
To
All in
approve.
favor?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
great. Approved the IT1 platform contract. And now moving on, do we have a motion to approve the vehicle purchase?
I motion to approve the vehicle purchase.
Okay, thank you, Soa. And do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Deb. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Great. We have approved the vehicle purchase. Exciting stuff.
Super exciting. We can around a lot more, which is great because that car is zooming. We have maybe half a dozen staff members who have been trained to be a school operated activity vehicle driver. And so it's super nice to be able to get students where they need to go. Potentially, it's busy. Oh my gosh. This week submitted applications for out of school time programming, submitted applications for community school grant, and they just keep continuing, right? It's there are more that are on the horizon, but I kind of give an overview here. Also included our corrective action plan. This last several months, we've had conversations about our SY25 audit results. This is a compliance piece, but you can certainly look at that, and I'll stand for questions if you have any. Recurring themes in my director's report are links to our Monday morning memos folder in hopes that helps you if you have time and interest, just kind of seeing some of the conversations that are happening. I do try to limit all staff communication to Monday mornings in one message so that they don't get bombarded by important emails from me and they know where they can go back and outside of their email find those. At Tina's request, I also keep a section in my report about current professional development. Our discipline matrix is really coming together, and it will be included in our student handbook for next year. Super proud of that work and happy to take any comments or questions if you've seen it. I did link in my self-assessment as my evaluation is still on the agenda for today. And then the last section on the director's report, I kind of gray it out If nothing has changed from last month to this month, and I hope that you've noticed that, and I can explain it now. And if I am making updates to our multiple performance frameworks, then I keep them in black so that you can see that we are moving forward with our dash, our PED site visits, our APS site visits, and whew, that's the end of that. And so I do know that there are still other things on the agenda, but if there are anything in here that you have questions about, I'm happy to elaborate further.
Thank you, Beth. I know it was a packed meeting. Um, all right. So for board priorities, just a quick recap. Some of the things that we did during our training were to kind of review aspects of our annual plan that link into the 5-year strategic plan, as well as go over some of our bylaws and make edits. Just real quick, we won't spend a lot of time because we have a full meeting, but Beth, would you mind if I share my screen?
Not at
Great.
all.
All right. So, in reviewing, we kind of stated that like it would be helpful to frequently review our yearly strategic plan. Sorry, this is a little bit small, but most of it we're on track for. These were kind of our data dives throughout the year. Um, and so with the March GC meeting, does everybody feel like we went over the needs assessment, panorama data review? Is there anything else that we needed to revisit there? No. Okay. So I can go ahead and highlight that. Or Sawa, did you have something?
No, sorry, I'm trying to bring up the chat on my phone.
Oh, okay. Um, And then, later this summer we'll go over the performance framework. So we're pretty good. Everybody expressed at the meeting that we felt like we were more knowledgeable about the data components and we're more regularly going over academic performance and data. Um, you know, Part of this too was a succession plan, so that still needs some work. I need to follow up with Kelly to ask about some of the templates that she has around a board succession plan. Um, Great that we got 2 new board members in a short amount of time. I know that Jody had also made a recommendation for somebody that maybe didn't have capacity at the moment, but might be looking in the next year or so. So we'll always be kind of tapping into that. So yeah, that's something that we do need to have on our radar over the next couple of months is looking more into um, plans for board recruitment and retention. And then strategic plan, which we're pretty good on. There's a few elements of the 5-year strategic plan to flesh out a little bit. But Beth and kind of the reapplication committee has looked at it and seen that it aligns well with what they're thinking for their charter reapplication. We also discussed whether it needed to be something that was officially approved by the board or not. And it doesn't necessarily. It can, be a living document for the next like 5 years. Um, and it basically is just that for the application, they were looking to know that, the board had plans and that they tie into the application. And so just having that document on file is what Beth and the school needs. And then we can treat the document as living over the next 5 years. Um, Underneath there, these are notes that I had taken from our training with kind of all the different updates to the bylaws. So I'll go through and edit that. They're pretty simple edits to the bylaws, and I can send that back out to the group in the next month or two. And then we can plan on, voting on those changed edits before the next school year starts. Um, so that's kind of where we're at with these different items. Any comments or questions about board priorities? All right. And then I know that we have also on our agenda going into a quick closed session to review the evaluation committee's evaluation of our director, Beth. And so do I have a motion to enter a closed session?
I move we enter a closed session.
Thank you, Deb. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I
that.
second.
Thank you, Sabah, and all in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
Great. All right. So Chris and Erica, thanks for your patience. It won't take us very long at all. We're going to enter a closed session with Beth to discuss her evaluation, and then we'll come back in the next few minutes. All right. And I appreciate Beth also for getting it organized on the
There we
Zoom
go.
side. So I know that takes a few minutes.
Do we have to turn off recording?
Thank you. Appreciate that. We are going to pause recording as well.
All right. Thank you all for your patience. We had a wonderful discussion around the board's evaluation committee's really positive review of Beth's performance. I'm going to send Beth our evaluation document. If anyone else from staff is interested, feel free, Beth, to share that with them, and Monday morning memos, however you'd like. And let's go ahead then and just quick review of future business. Next board meeting May 15th, and then graduations June 3rd and June 5th. I know that we
Martha, I just
Yeah.
want to acknowledge that Erica's hands up.
Sure, go ahead, Erica.
Left for a minute, but he's back.
Oh, thank you. Yes, so I was looking over my notes while you guys were in the closed session, and I missed when we called the meeting to order. I didn't get who motioned to call it to order and who seconded.
I believe that one might have been I feel like Jody was first, and then Deb, were you second on that very first one? So we'll say Jody was the first and Deb was the second.
Okay, thank you so much. That was
Yep.
it.
Thanks, Erica. All right. So do I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
I'll motion to adjourn the meeting
Thank you,
at
Sabah. Do I have a
6:07.
second? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
It's at 6:07.
At 6:07. Thank you. Yeah.
I'll second.
Thank you, Deb. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All right. We have adjourned the April 2026 Gordon Burnell Governance Council meeting at 6:07 p.m. Thank you all for your time. Enjoy
Thank
your
you.
evenings. See you next month.
Thank you.
Thanks. Welcome
Thanks
back,
so much.
Martha.
Yeah, thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah,
back.
Martha, how's your baby? How's your baby?
Doing well. I can hear him in there. He's probably getting a little
Oh,
anxious to see
yeah,
me
he
again.
probably
So.
is getting, yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you so much.
All right. Take
Take
care,
care.
everybody. Bye.